Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to CTO Insights. This one's a fun one. It's our second one this year. And changing it up, we're having a panel. You know I like to keep it short, so I'm going to introduce you to Rick. He's part of eCore, and he brought part of his team to try to help us out with and guide us through this AI journey we're going in. All right?
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate it. So my name's Rick Shaddix. I'm the Senior Executive Partner at eCore. My primary responsibility is business development around solution services. I'm also going to be the MC to kind of control some of the discussion. We want it to be very interactive. If you have questions, we're going to ask you your experiences as well, but our panel are three experienced people that I've known, some for 30 years, and I think you'll find it very entertaining and hopefully informative. Just to give you a little background about me, I've been in the IT business for over 40 years, old man. I've seen a lot of technology, been associated with a lot of companies as an executive, such as GTEDs, if anybody remembers GTEDs, which is now Verizon, Nielsen Media Research. I was head of IT there. Did a lot of consulting, implementation, strategy work, WellCare being one of those we were discussing earlier. So seen a lot of technology over my career. You know, I even go back as far as the old days when you submitted punch cards into these old mainframes that read them, your program. You had to have hundreds just to do a basic program. And then the implementation and rollout of personal computers. And then multi-user systems and Unix and Xenix and people going from PL1, Fortran to COBOL to C to Java and so on. So we've seen a lot of technology movement. And the interesting thing is that AI is not new. It's been around since the 1950s. And anybody that ever wrote any COBOL, did if statements, you know what we're talking about, right? The biggest issue now is that the technology is catching up to AI so it can become faster and more lean. So what we're going to do this evening is talk about AI. And what we want to do is want you to learn from us, and we want to learn from you, make it very interactive as we go through this. So let's talk a little bit about the numbers. All the research firms, this one in particular is around MIT and Gartner and McKinsey, talks about the failure rate of AI initiatives. And really when you look at it, it boils down to just like any other new technology. If you don't have the expertise, and if you don't have the understanding or the money or the time to do it, you're probably going to fail. So how do you improve your success rate? How do you mitigate that risk? And the best way to do it is to have experience, if you can get it. Hire yourself some really good qualified resources, which we all know is hard to do because it's new technology. Or you partner yourself with a technology company, i.e. like us, that will help you through that process to make life a little better. Mr. Einstein, the only source of knowledge is experience. And you all need it, right? You need to do it to learn how to use AI. I'm not a firm believer that AI is going to take over the world, because if it does, who's going to be the people to make money to buy the stuff that AI is going to generate, right? So we heard the same thing about PCs. We heard the same thing about a lot of technologies. So let me just give you a brief history about our company and what we do, and then we'll move into the panel. We are a technology solution-based partner that has been in business for over 26 years. We have close to a little over 600 engineers and different principals. At any given time, we'll have 300 plus active projects and within 25 business sectors. Now, we're a globally based organization with clients all over the world. Our primary outsourcing nearshore center is in Brazil, in Porto Alegre, and also Sao Paulo. And we do have an instance in Mexico City as well. We have strategic partnerships that we've had for many years. Atlassian being one, AWS, and Google Cloud that's positioned us into the AI arena, and I'll go into that a little bit more. But we also have a new player in our partnership called Squid AI, which is a very enterprise-based solution that if you're interested, we can talk about it in a later date at some point. So how did we get into AI? But due to our partnerships with AWS and with Google Cloud, we have been working with AI agents for several years. Martin's going to give you some examples. Martin's on the end down there. We'll give you some examples of how we got into it. We've done 100 successful AWS implementations, and we have over 100 engineers that are AWS certified as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Also, the other thing that makes you successful is your approach, doing it correctly. One of the things, if you saw back in the numbers, it talks about use cases, meaning what is the problem you're trying to solve, the business problem you're trying to solve, and then basing those off on use cases. So we have an approach which we call SEED: strategy, execution, empowerment, and durability. Came up with ourselves. We thought it was pretty sharp, but it enables us and the projects that we're doing to be successful. So, and here's some of our clients. So we work with both large companies and small. I'd like to introduce Mr. Andrew over here, Stanfield. He's one of our account managers. He's joined us tonight. If you have any questions afterwards, you can look for me or Martin or Andrew. Andrew's been in the business over 15 years, very well-respected technology account manager and solution provider. One of my favorite quotes, but I can't find who said it. Success is best achieved by learning from the success and failures of those around you. Very pronounced statement, right? We've all dealt with it. We've all had failures and we've all had success. So tonight, we're going to have an open panel discussion. We'd like you to participate. Some of you guys have provided us with questions, and we're going to look at those as well. So first, let me start by introducing our panel. Dave Thompson, right here. I've known Dave for 30-something years. Go ahead.
Been a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I met Rick at GTEDs. We've worked together in different places on different projects in different industries. Actually brought him into a place I worked at in New York for a music publishing business, which is a kind of a strange thing for us to do, but very technologically motivated they are to make money. So, but I've had 35 years of experience or so, worked in a lot of different domains, a lot of different industries, a lot of different positions, been CTO, started a couple of companies, Dan probably knows about one of those, and had a lot of good times and a lot of learning from different lessons, good and bad, you know, and you got to learn from what doesn't work. So, and I'm here to help you guys understand a little bit. You probably mostly already know most of it, but we'll talk about it, and you can ask any questions, and we'll see where we can go from there.
And we'll have the panel give you the examples of the AI that they're working in just a second. Thanks, David. I forgot to change your name. Sorry about that.
Clean.
So that you'll remember me then.
Exactly. I haven't forgotten you in 20
Incorrect,
years.
you
So
know, I was incorrect. But yeah, I've known Rick for about 30 years as well. My first opportunity to work with Rick was at WellCare. It's probably in 2006, 2007. I've had experience in technology probably since I got out of high school. I just went straight into that workforce and started figuring things out and helping people out. My first project I remember was building a migrant worker tracking application, which then turned into a library card printer. We sold it to Gaither High School, but it was a time management system. And I learned a lot from there, and I grew into chasing technology because I liked it. So the last decade, I've been working in architecture in various roles, VPs, chief architect, very different backgrounds, working in B2B e-commerce as well as payments and fintech, and in hospitality. And as well as in the news space, I guess is what we would call it. Recently just finished completing a hackathon, one of the largest from AWS, as they had stated, 130 people, 8 different teams, all delivering production-ready code with AI. So that was really the last week that I had with AWS, and coming from that, I was straight from the AWS conference in Vegas, and once I saw the new Kiro AI, I was impressed, and now I'm even more impressed by the process that AWS can bring us.
All right, thank you. And Martin.
Dave. Excuse me. First, thanks for coming out tonight and spending your valuable time with us. And I hope that this isn't just the four of us talking and you asking questions. I'd love to hear more about your experiences too, some successes and some failures. I've been with eCore now for a whopping 8 months. Prior to that, 5 years with AWS. And then I think we put 25 up there because I didn't really want to age myself, but prior to that, about 30 years combined between the Walt Disney Company and NBC Universal. I've had the really good fortune of working for companies that really didn't typecast you. They put you wherever there was a need. So with Disney, I got to be a program. I got to be a program manager. I got to be a leader. Got to live in different countries. When they built the first cruise ship, got to go live in Italy for 6 months and help with the technology to launch that. When we built our first theme park in Asia, I started just going over to give some consulting. Consulting turned into a few trips. A few trips turned into, can you just stay a little longer, maybe 6 months? And 3 years later, I finally said I was ready to go home. So it's been a great journey. And the past, I'd say 2 or 3 years, working a lot more, starting out with some machine learning, moving over to AI, and now, of course, Gen AI and agents and agentic. And luckily, especially in the 8 months with eCore, I've had a good opportunity to work with some companies, got to see some really cool stuff and help implement it. Also got to see some nice, I would call it POC purgatories, which maybe some of you experienced, I hope not, but there's definitely some lessons learned that I'm looking forward to sharing. And of course, like I said earlier, really want to hear from everyone and get to learn from you too.
Why don't you just hang on to that mic for a second? We'll let you take the first question. Why don't you? Now, one of the things I just want to caveat specifically with some of the eCore customers, and I know both with Tim and David both, due to confidentiality and legal reasons, they can't necessarily get into specifics about some of the things they're doing, but I think we'll cover enough about the technology that we'll still achieve the objective. So Martin, you want to bring up one of the eCore's customers and talk about what they're doing with AI right now, and then pass it down to Dave?
Sure. I should probably hold this up when I'm talking. One of the most exciting ones they're working on, we've been developing this product called AI Ops, and we kind of had a launch partner in Brazil. They're the largest food delivery service in Brazil. So think of like an Uber Eats or DoorDash, but in Brazil. So they'll do, I think we have some of the metrics on that, Rick, but they're doing on busy times like 7,000 orders per minute. So, any sort of issue that is a hiccup is money. And they were finding that they have a support operations team, but their engineers kept getting pulled into issues. And they were seeing their engineers were spending, like for a mean time to detection, it could be 8+ minutes. It could take them up to 180 minutes to resolve. So we started working with them, looking at their knowledge bases, run books, their history, and started implementing an agentic solution that could do the triage. It could start looking at the run books. We started out very slowly. We took we'll call it like a verify, then trust kind of approach. So it would actually, the agent would suggest. And then as they started getting a little bit more confidence, they could start automating that. So what we got to see is like that 180 minute went down to less than 50 minutes. And it just keeps improving. And while you look at those numbers and you go, wow, that's pretty cool. The piece that I found the most interesting was the human side. Because now all these engineers that were sitting there watching their backlogs grow while they go into firefighting are actually developing and shipping capabilities now, which they couldn't do. There was just never enough time. So to me, that's one of the coolest things I've seen, at least in the 8 months I've been there. Got some other examples, but I always come back to this one just because it's got some solid results already. And with each iteration, it just keeps getting better.
Dave?
So I can't really talk about what I really do, but I can give you some idea of the industry. So there's several industries, of course, you guys know, that are impacted a lot more than others with AI and benefit a lot from it. One of them is the legal industry. And in the legal world, of course, you look at what lawyers actually do. They take documents, they process data, they ingest a lot of information, and then they have to parse it out and try to figure out what it really does and is it really going to help them. So one of the things that I've done recently as far as AI goes, which I think is pretty important production-wise, first of all, AI for me is like all about efficiency, right? You got to be productive and you got to be efficient, and that's what I try to do with everything I do AI in my innovation role at where I'm currently at. So taking things like documents and ingesting them, looking at products like Claude Cowork and things that you guys have heard of and seen. Now there's Copilot Cowork, where Microsoft clipped Cowork from Claude. And then trying to use that to help people understand what's possible with AI. I'm sure you guys have seen Copilot 365, right? It's the interface there is pretty similar to what we might do in a Copilot Studio to develop an agent or something like that. But trying to evangelize the usage of that one piece of software is just so productive. People can, summarize their meetings, they can get a list of everything they're doing and all that stuff. It's productivity for me, and that's what I've really been working on, efficiency and productivity.
Right.
Is it okay to ask questions quickly?
Yes, absolutely.
So the fact that you talked about law firms that kind of brought that question to my mind. I work for Infosys, so I'm in the same booster as you are in, right? So, but just thinking about what Claude did, right, for the law side of things, that you can actually have agents that knows about legal documents, legalese, and things like that, and then that's actually a kind of a threat for people like us, because okay, now where we are bringing the differentiation, right? Where is the particle thing going that we say about that? Okay, Cloud knows about how to develop code and it is a frontier model, but it doesn't know about shipping, supply chain blockages and things like that. We can bring the efficiency there. Right? So it's definitely a threat to what we do to differentiate us with the frontier models, right? How do you think about that? I mean, I think like that there is going to be more vertical integration and sure. Capabilities coming from frontier models as it goes along. And then how do the system integrators like or consultants like evolve to that? Because to me it is always it's a moving target from so to speak.
Absolutely.
How do you differentiate? How do you think about it?
Well, the business matter, business content, you need a subject matter expert, right? I'm not an attorney, but I consult with attorneys to try to figure out what's going to make their life better, right? So there's always a human interaction there to a degree. I'll give you an example of how an attorney might fail at using AI. So I load up a bunch of documents and I ask it to give me some citations related to these documents, right? Just being very generic, right? And then I say, oh, well, give me some specifics about these citations. Here's 2 citations. Here's the 3rd citation. Well, give me some more detail about this 3rd citation. And then the non-deterministic model says, I just made that up. It's not real. It will tell you what you want to hear if you ask it the right questions, right? I mean, it's getting a lot better. Hallucinations are coming down quite a bit. But there's always people that are needed. And to answer your question, I think, as far as that particular subject goes, you have to have review. You can't just, ask it to do something and expect it to do what you want. And for us, as subject matter experts potentially at different things, we would need to be able to ensure that that answer was correct, especially the non-deterministic model. I mean, you can ask Claude, you can ask, Gemini, you're going to get a different answer when you ask Claude twice. It's just different. So, wrong, right? Somebody's going to have to make that decision.
Does that help?
Yeah, no, that makes
Excellent.
sense.
Anybody have anything else about that? I can go on forever.
Well, I can make a comment about
Sure.
that too. I think the IP becomes the context engineering. I think the IP becomes the prompt chain, and the human process becomes the IP.
Yeah,
And then everything else becomes commoditized.
Right. And again, we are all people with strong opinions, right? But the way I think about it is that you have to keep on evolving, because when we first started the business, so I have advised clients like Coke and State Street on business, right? So, and then what you have to do is, so we help Coke actually build out a platform where you can configure multi-agent AI products through configurations, not through coding from ground up, right? But then you see that the hyperscalers are going to keep on catching up on that, and you cannot compete with them on that one. They're so big and they have so much money to invest, right? So the way I see it is that you keep on looking at those gaps that are there, and you keep on filling up those gaps, but make sure that you understand that those gaps are not going to be there forever, right? So you have to like keep on moving all the time. Vibing platforms. We built one. We had huge success with that one because that really helps our salespeople sell things, right? Because they can now bring up user experience in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and show it to the customer right there, and then wow the customer with that one. But then, how long we are going to have that edge? Somebody else is going to come and catch up with us.
Well, it's like, sorry to interrupt you, it's a maturity aspect, right? With any technology, when you first start out, right? And then as the technology catches on, and as the chips get faster and cooler, it's amazing what will happen, but you're absolutely right. So let's let.
I can go on and on, sorry.
I know you can, and so I got to stop you.
Well, you're giving me time to think about what's in my head because right now it's AI chaos. I work on many fronts. So one of the main drivers for me currently is a good dev experience. So I help my dev engineers try to build a stack for their AI so that they can manage their usage, their token usage, build new innovative skills, things that allow them to move faster and complete tasks better. So that's one aspect of what I've been really focusing on is just aligning my teams to have a really good workflow and dev experience. And on the other side of that is how do we incorporate business and product or product itself, product and design. They have to have their dev stack, which is more knowledge-based driven. So I've been doing a lot of research and a lot of coordinating with both sides of the coin on how to best integrate them with AI. And my experience is knowledge base with shared code helps a lot, and it allows both sides to understand what's going on with the product at hand. On top of that, there's another project that I'm working on. It's more geared towards an AI brain with community news and logic. So when communities have social environments where they need to share their ideas and events, that gets all loaded up into an agentic knowledge base, or a knowledge base driven by agentic AI. So when that data is then viewed or read through communities and people in communities, it's specifically geared towards what their interests are in relation to their community. Nothing outside of their community will encroach on that. So you won't see national information, but you'll see local community information. So that is really based on building that knowledge base for an end user. So I would say it's like a three-prong approach. One for devs to actually provide the application, one for product and design to design and own up to the business, and then we have the end user, which is going to consume all this information. Whether it's in a hospitality space where they're doing a agentic booking, or if you're wanting to see what your scores are for your son's high school team, that information should be available to you through either an AI prompt or an intent, or just a click of a button that actually triggers an AI process. So a lot of that work I've been working on for probably the last 3 years, and it's still evolving. And I can tell you right now, the level that AI is at today is exponential. Like I would spend months just crunching on a single model, trying to get it to do things I wanted to do. Today, I could do that in a weekend, less than a weekend. The recent hackathon work, those were actual products that are going into production. Just some minor tweaks with the red tape in business or in corporations. Large corporations have that red tape. And those products will provide end users with AI experience that they haven't seen yet. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of growth, as you were saying. There's going to be growth and change.
Yeah, question.
Yes.
So on the dev experience part that you touched on, how do you drive adoption to the teams and not the engineers, adoption of the AI tooling? And also, how do you measure the engineering efficiency once they get those tools?
Yeah, it's some good questions. So my tactic is to gauge or assess their level of interaction with the AI. So if they're just using AI like many of us probably used a couple years ago, where you're just modifying code and it does autocomplete and stuff like that. And in fact, there was stuff like that even before AI, which would just macro your code out. If you have an engineer at that level, you have to start giving him guidance and tools to see the potential of what he can do in the future. So I've had experiences where I would interview my engineers and see that they're working with MCP tools. So as they do that, then I'm asking them, well, what are you using MCP for? Are you using like a memory MCP or a knowledge-based MCP? Do you understand what those things are? And if they're interested in this, then they'll start looking it up. And then I'll have another interview with them and then see where they progress. So it's kind of like I would say it's more like a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Right? Come see your CTO for a psych eval. But as they grow and mature into understanding how to use AI to the point where now they're just using skills, they're writing their own skills, they're actually asking AI to build skills for them, and then they learn how that thing operates, then they see the potential. My goal is to give them the tools or lead a horse to water. They can't make them drink, but if they're not drinking, that's their own fault. Yeah. And then they'll see everybody else moving ahead of them. So that happens all naturally or all organically. So as you start to give more information to an engineer that's hungry for this, then they start to grow on their own. And then it spreads virally across the board. And I believe, what was the other question?
How do you measure engineering efficiency?
Oh, so efficiency is another way. So one of the coolest things I've done was after the end of a session that I'm working with AI, I just prompt it, what is the estimate of time a human would have taken to do this? And give it to me in like a PowerPoint bullet list. And it'll give me a breakdown of all the metrics of what it saw and what it did, and then an estimate of like, well, this would have taken you 84 hours for an engineer. So you have 95% compression, productivity compression. When you see stuff like that, that empowers your engineer to say, whoa, how do I get it even more? Right? So for instance, I was just talking earlier about there's a skill out there now called caveman. And it reduces your usage by 75%, up to 75%, by giving back your tokens in as a response of like line 43, debug, good. That's all it does. That's all you need anyways. You don't need this whole fluff that it's explaining to you. So you save your tokens that way. So that's another way of getting usage. And so you can track all that and then compare it against your ROI based on your cost, where you've been spending it. For instance, with Kiro, you have a subscription, or in AWS, you have a subscription. You can see how much they're using it, and then you can upskill that engineer or downskill them. So however they're using that AI. If you have to downskill them, then you know that you have to have that interview to figure out how to get them into that $200 a month level. If you get them at that $200 a month level for that subscription, then you know they're moving really fast.
Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I get the interview part, but if you try to scale it to an organization that has 300 to 400 engineers, how do you do that? You can't interview every single engineer.
Oh, no, so you'll have a hierarchical system, right? You're gonna have a director with managers, and those managers are gonna learn from you, so you have to push that down. there's definitely a top-down thing if you're in an AI specific.
And I think also if you use a combination of skill sets, people that already have that skill set,
Yeah.
and then also mirror that with the ones that need to learn and be trained. So it's a combination. You know, it's like,
Yeah, it's dev culture.
yeah, definitely. And also you're not talking about having all A players either. So, David, did you want to comment anything?
I think that, you know, you really have to start, you know, pick an area, find something that's going to be easily adoptable, a big hit, big win. You know, everybody, oh, get the first win, right? But you want to have something that's easy to get started with, so people buy into it, and that gets the top to pay attention, right? I mean, you have to have support from the executives to really push AI through, and if you have that support, you find an area where you, and there's plenty of areas that, you know, you can look and find what area, whatever type of business you're in, you can find an area that you can get a good win, quick win in, and you just the team. You have one small team that does that to begin with, and then it starts to spread, and everybody sees them using AI in a different way, and they're like, you know, kind of catches on, right? And it just keeps, next little POC, oh, that's good, let's keep it, let's make it production, right? Just keep moving that way, and it grows and grows and grows. Like, you can't, 300 engineers, man, you can't be, hey, everybody, now you're AI developers, right? That's not going to work. You got to slowly move in there.
Hang on one second. Gentleman right back here, do you have a question?
Yeah, it's more of a general comment. You all
Okay.
are sharing some awesome information. A lot of it's up here. We got a lot of technical folks in the room. I was hoping to.
We're going to get there.
Specifics.
We get there.
Awesome. Thank
All right, we will. We'll get into the details. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, back here. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, generally AI generated code, there is a lot of issues when it comes to code security, especially AI will hallucinate and generate some beautiful code, which the developer thinks that, okay, it just got the job done, 95% faster. The code that it generates does not have the real meaning of if a human would have understood the entire application and return only the specific code. The code load and the code security is two major concerns. And how do you handle that? And that is the first question. Maybe after you answer that, I can ask the second question.
How do you handle the code bloat?
Yeah, so whenever you ask AI to generate any code, and it'll write a beautiful, huge code, and you say, okay, this is getting the job done. But if a human writes that, it knows that it doesn't need to do all these 15 things, it just needs to do only this. And you write the code only for that specific task.
Yeah, so that's where we get back into skills, where you can actually define the directive of what an AI should do and how it should build things. One common issue is where engineers have a special way of writing unit tests, and those unit tests have to have, like, maybe some have a mock, maybe they have a API mock, and the thing is, you can put those in a instruction file to allow the AI to just strictly work in those confines. So you can define that, and I would suggest any organization that has that, you have like a modular breakdown of how your application is built and a special spec related to that. A really good example is like Storybook for JavaScript, for components. You can actually index your Storybook and have an AI agent create a spec document, like a markdown file, regarding each one of those components. And so then when you're building an app or a web page, you can just use those specs rather than having it go and inspect the code base of the Storybook and bring it in. So it could build straight off of that spec.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking this question is, I've tried TDD, I've tried creating the spec, I've tried, getting the entire context of the whole code base so that the AI understands what precisely it has to build rather than give me 7,000 more lines of code. And that is what happens if you keep working on AI. Your, generally speaking, 1 million line of code becomes a 10 million line of code, and it is humongous. And it cannot come out of that because it is so fast. The amount of load that gets added, it is almost like buying a phone with extreme
It still goes back to skills. So you definitely have to put the guardrails up on your AI agent so it doesn't go off and do things like that. So your skills are basically the guardrails or instructions, like you must do this, you must follow this path. For instance, AWS has the AI DLC workflow. It's open source, you can get it on GitHub, and that will confine your agent to a spectrum in development. It has an inception phase, it has a construction phase, and it has an operations phase. And each one of those phases use a special set of skills that keeps it confined in that particular expectation of your request. So it really comes down to how do you define what bloat is, because you can squeeze that out. You don't really need to do that. But if you're not using those instruction files or those specs, then you're going to get whatever hallucination or whatever bloat it would want to do. It'll give you everything that you want. And when in those cases, when you see that, you can always tell the AI, hey, this is too big, trim it down, right? Cut it down. I don't want it like that. Now I want you to remember to do that next time. Don't ever create bloat.
Yeah, I tried that, you know.
Well, let's take that offline. Maybe you and Tim could talk a little bit more. Just one comment, and we'll go to this gentleman right here. You had a question. Is that just because you're doing AI doesn't remove best practices around engineering. You have to stick to that. You have to follow them because you're still building code that requires structure. Yes, sir. Did you have?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, at this point, we're a small company, and we've spent the last year and a half really doing a lot of the POCs, a lot of R&D with Cursor, Cloud Code, this, that, and everything. And I actually feel now, like right now, we're at a point where it's like we're done trying and we need to start building some like enterprise methodologies on how we're embracing it and create some standardization across our internal development team and our external development team. And this idea of like different people using AI in different ways is actually creating some problems. It's really hard to kind of measure performance. So I'm more of the mindset like today, probably than I was a few months ago, of saying like we have to standardize this. And it's affecting our interview process too. So when we interview people, it's like, okay, you can write code. I actually care less about that and more about the way that you think and architect solutions, how you prompt, whether or not you create guardrails and you set up a project properly so that it does not run away from you.
Exactly.
So I'm like in that mode right now and saying that this is the point where we need to start creating the standards and coming up with an AI methodology for our software development.
The model for the AI architect in the future developer is a much smarter thought process individual, not just somebody that slings code. I think, unfortunately, if you look at JavaScript, it got a lot of engineers lazy. And if what they had to do, they didn't really have to think through the process. This goes back to a developer actually having to design, outline, put together those guardrails, ensure that it's best practice.
It's still garbage in, garbage out. At the end of the day. I mean, that's not going to change.
That's true.
That rule still applies, 100%.
You're creating an AI agent with garbage. That's the worst part.
At enterprise level, you need governance.
Governance.
You have to have governance. So you do have to set that, like a steering committee or some kind of governance team that says this is our reference architecture. This is what we're using from an AI reference architecture.
And that MIT study about those enterprise initiatives that have failed, it's not because of the AI.
No,
Correct.
no, absolutely not.
It just to add to what you say, another thing that I have seen the work strategy is that if you use LLM as a judge, right?
Yep.
So when you are actually, your LLM is creating your code, but then you use another LLM to really critique that code, right?
Yeah.
And you can go a couple of iterations to see what is the optimal way. That's another strategy that has worked.
Well, so that's agentic agents. So AI. So when you're building an agentic orchestrator, you're going to have that LLM as a judge. So you may have a specific foundational model for your business that you've trained, like in lawyers and stuff. They have models that are built with all the cases, I'm sure, and then you would use that for one thing, and then you would maybe have another model that actually verifies what comes out. That's the same thing that happens with like Cloud Code. There's 6 different context layers for that request. So when you send your request to Cloud Code, it's going through 6 layers of massaging that response back out. Now, whether you want it in code in JSON response, or if you want just the full, PDF document, those are layers in that context that is going to give you that back. And those are different models that may do that.
One of the things know I went through it kind of fast because I knew we were going to have a lot of time here at these question and answers. But part of that MIT study, one of the things that it highlighted at the bottom was those that have been successful took an approach of structure, planned, good use cases, good identification of business requirements. You have a question, sir?
Oh, I just had a comment
Sure.
before you brought up governance, because I was going to say you should definitely put all this stuff in governance. But I think one of the easiest ways to really even approach all this is like your AI strategy is essentially your data strategy. And then, we have a lot of sprawl where I'm currently at, where you have people that have no business being in data, magically going, hey, I can do this with AI. And I have a lot of high up ears in my company. And I said, guys, like, if we didn't trust these people to pull this off without AI, why should we blindly accept them to do it with it? And they're like, whoa, like that's a loaded thing. I'm like, no, let's be real. They never learned how to use a screwdriver. You gave them a power drill, and they're walking around swinging like a hammer. Like, what are we doing here? And so I think a lot of it really comes back to one, governance, and letting, like, you really have to lock this stuff down, because a lot of people are starting to just throw around AI and automation as the same word, and it's comical, because no, we don't need AI for that. You could automate 3 things and get exactly what you need for a third of the price.
Right. Exactly.
There's not really an industry that doesn't value their data, right? I mean, you're right. I mean, data governance is everything, and data security, like you're talking about. You wouldn't like load everything into a public, forum and have, random people go in and try to dig your data out, right? I mean, if people do that, that's data governance is hard.
Right, for sure. Well, that's what people are also saying that too. Like, don't be surprised when people's health records start just leaking
Oh,
out
yeah.
the internet, because the
Credit card
people
numbers,
just throwing it all into
Social security
AI.
numbers.
Yeah.
I'm sure those lawyers they're keeping all that PII just local. They're not doing anything.
They're all out.
PI.
Yeah, whatever.
We're going to, hopefully we'll have enough time to get into security, but yes, sir, do you have another comment?
Yeah, that was my follow-up question, which is similar to what the gentleman asking. Is really security, code security, your code being used to train their own model. Somehow somebody trying to find out what precisely you wrote in your code, because your code was used for training their models. Not only that, gentleman literally said the same thing. People who don't even know how to use a screwdriver, now we are giving them a power drill. This is precisely what happens when we give our developers, our engineers, AI, go ahead and use it. If there is cursor, there is Claude Code, Claude Cobalt, and they start bloating, they start putting in security loopholes, they ruin the entire situation. The main question which I really want to ask is, how do you put a system-wide or a company-wide governance situation, and how do you embed that everybody has to abide by? It is not a document that somebody can read, it is not training that somebody will follow. How do you do that?
Well,
Company-wide situation?
I have my opinion, but Dave, you want to start, and then maybe Martin?
Yeah.
A little bit.
So, security and inside of the AI world is tough, especially the agentic world. So there's several tools out there that can help you do that. I'm facing an issue right now with orchestration of my agents. How do I control the agent world? Because everybody wants to write an agent. Oh, we'll write the same agent. We'll deploy the same agent. How do I version the agents? How do I make sure that the right people that can use that agent to see that data is using the right agent? I write an agent, I'm an attorney, I write an agent, I share it. Oh, they're not on the same case, right? Now I've got litigation issues all over the place, right? Data is out there in the wrong hands. But orchestration is part of the FinOps part as well. It's like Tim mentioned, how many tokens you're using, what's the expense of the model. It all ties together with that, managing the agent. As far as Claude Code goes, I would not give everybody Claude Code ever, because that is just waiting to just expose and crash the world.
I got a question.
Yeah,
What do you mean by that? When you say you would not give everybody, so like engineers, product folks, testers?
If you give everybody, I mean, if you're going to give them Claude Code, it needs to be in an isolated area, where it's managed secure
I
inside
would
a
say
firewall.
that we just
No
did that.
Facebook
We did.
access to post about all the
Yeah.
projects that made over the
You
weekend.
can't leak the whole Workday database to somebody, and
Well, I mean, the reason why I say that is we just did that. Every single engineer in our organization, 300 plus, have access to cloud. Now, we do have guardrails in
Yeah.
place. We do have skills in place. We have a governance model in place. Folks are using our issue now is that the engineers are not prompting, right? Even though we did training with them, they're not prompting. They're building the code and asking Claude to verify it, which is the opposite of what we want them to do.
Yeah, that's
so
not
we
right.
want them to do more prompting. So I don't know if I agree with the statement saying don't get cloud code to other engineers because you're not getting that efficiency. You want to get them cloud code.
it's got to be in controlled environment. Otherwise, you're going to leak it out. But yeah, as far as getting engineers to do that, to work in that area, it's the prompting, right? I mean, you've got lots of prompts. Everybody's got a prompt. Building prompts. AI can build the prompt for you. If they're writing the code on their own, they must be really comfortable in their UI, right? They've got their own Visual Studio or whatever they're using to generate, to write their code. So they're really comfortable in that, and they have libraries that they're used to using and whatever. I mean,
They can still do all
I
that.
could do it.
I mean, you have the
Plug
cloud
in.
extension and yes.
Yeah, you just
like,
plug in
it's no big deal.
code.
It's a maturity level.
That's
Yeah.
exactly how it is.
Yeah, you got to get them in there and got to get them using it, right? I mean, that's.
I think it's now or never. That's
Yeah,
why.
I mean,
That's why I said,
If we don't do it, everybody else is
if
doing
you
it.
don't do it, the company's not going to be in existence. 3, 4,
Yeah.
100%. You have to do it.
Yeah, I think it's a catch-22. You can try to restrict it. I always go back to my wife's company. She works for a home builder. They have a thou shalt manual that's like 20 pages of what you can't do with AI. So what does everyone do? They use their personal subscriptions. So now they're uploading company documents. You've got people coding. I'm kind of leaning towards where you are. You have to enable them, but you got to enable them with education and the guardrails. What I like to do is find, in any group, like in your group where you have over 300 devs, you're always going to have a few early adopters, people that are showing progress. You got to seed them in those teams, and they have to be the ones that get rewarded, because then you start getting that herd mentality. Well, I see Martin's getting all the accolades and he's getting all the cool all the cool projects. Well, that's because he's on board and he's actually shipping code, where he's not sitting there for 6 weeks going through requirements. So I think you have to kind of build that organically. And getting back to the security and guardrails, I think that's still a problem to be solved, to be honest. I think there's a lot out there, but unless you're really savvy and maybe you have your Claude MD that has the greatest instructions on, you're a pen tester, make sure you test this, and all your code guidelines, you'd have to figure out a way to roll that out. And so I think that part is still nascent. It's like the genie's out of the bottle, and now we're just trying to figure out, we know we can't put it back in, but how do we control it?
Yeah.
One of the things that, just from an executive perspective, you still got to have leadership, folks.
Yeah.
You just can't let people go willy-nilly. To have a successful, productive, effective organization, you need leadership and you need guidance. You're not going to be able to please everybody, and not everybody can have an opinion all the time. So your objective is to get the job done as quickly and as effectively as possible. And if you want a lab environment where everybody can go play, that's a different environment. But if you're talking about production, return on investment, I don't know a CEO that's going to give you money to develop in the hundreds to thousands to millions of dollars to play around and let somebody off the side post stuff to Facebook or go crazy. They want to see efficiency. And that's where the guardrails, that's where the processes, the maturity, and the leadership come to effect. Hang on one second. Yes, sir.
So speaking of that, and really kind of everything wrapping together around, it's all change management.
Yep.
At the end of the
Very
day.
good point.
So everything we just talked about, plus define fail in that study that you just
Right.
described us. What do they mean fail, right? How do they define fail? And I would think that a lot of it is tied to change management.
Well, it's change management, and just the fact that and another thing to the success of your program is to educate. Not only educate the users, the business, but also the executives. Everybody thinks you should do it overnight. This is probably not politically correct anymore, but I used to have a saying when I talked to customers: I can put 9 women in a room for a month, but a baby's not going to be produced. It's going to take what it takes. So you have to educate your executive staff to make them understand that you need the time to get the procedures in place, the guardrails, educate your business users. And one of the things that the failure study was about was what was the return on investment. Many of them couldn't even predict it, so they just threw a number because that's what the business wanted. Well, guess what? You're going to miss that. You didn't even really have a target. It's moving all over the place. And one of the questions we were going to talk about, and hopefully we'll get to, is how do you develop RI effectively?
Yep.
Because some of the cost structures, we haven't talked about that, can get out really fast on you. So how do you control those? So this is a very exciting technology, but it's still in the immature state, and it requires you guys to put a close focus. And if you don't know the answers, seek people that do. You may not agree with them, but at least they've had an experience on that. So it sounds like we got a lot of people. So you have a question or a comment?
Essentially, you brought up leadership. I'm surprised to took this on for us to pinpoint that. But leadership, it's like we have a couple of things in leadership where we do some tracking on like corporate machines around what they're looking at. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I do have access to it, so I can see it, see how it's being used. But one of the big things they said was, oh, we're going to give everybody AI. And once we give everybody AI, then we're going to look at who's actually adopting. And I go, define adopting. They go, well, are they spending hours in the actual programs? And it's like, it doesn't matter if you're spending hours in there. It's like, what are they actually doing with those hours? Like, how do we get the ROI out of it? We can't tell that, but we just want to see people using it. And then I started to ask questions, and I immediately got shown the door around it. And it was like,
Well, that's immaturity at the executive level. They hear all the buzzwords.
They don't want to hear that. But it's like, hey, like if somebody's spending 8 hours a day in AI,
What are they doing?
and we're not seeing what they're doing with it, why are we paying them? It sounds like AI is doing something where they don't know how to do the job. Oh, you can't jump to conclusions. It's like, I'm just looking for answers. Like, how do we correlate these things? I do a lot of data, obviously, and so it's like, are we using data responsibly? And AI is basically the same thing as any other tool. I don't know anything about network engineering and firewalls and all that. Why would you trust me to go spin up all these servers and make sure all these firewalls work? Who the first person to say, I don't want to do it? You can say, hey, use AI to figure it out. No, I don't want to do it. But you don't see that on all sides. So it's like, who do we give AI to? We don't give it to everybody. You give it to people and you onboard them like you would with any other software, any other tool. And then you would say, oh, well, I want to use AI. What are you going to use it for? Like, let's have a conversation.
Exactly. What are you going to? What's the business going to use it for? What's the positive outcome? Yeah.
So
The
that's
roles
why
are there
I
for a
like
reason.
when you say that it has to be an all-rounded perspective, right? Just giving those, citing those numbers about productivity gains, you have to actually balance that with the number of millions of tokens that it is getting used, right? You have to strike a balance. If you get those productivity, but then you spend $1 million more on coming back with 10% productivity or bringing it up, is that a good?
Well, that's it. It gets back down to like any technology issue, right? What is the business case that we're trying to solve here? Do we know the process? How does it work today? Do we know it well? Is the scope narrowly defined? Do we have metrics on what it does today? And then what is our expectation that AI is going to do? Because to your point, we can say, oh, this is great, but did it really save us money? Because now we're burning through tokens, but a person could have done this and we could have paid them minimum wage maybe.
One of the terms I don't like to use, but it's true when it comes to AI is fake news. So many executives hear how great it's supposed to be and how it's going to solve all their problems and eliminate workforce. Anybody that's fully using it, one of the technology companies that have been awarded 2 years in a row at Davos Summit, all they're doing is layering AI on top of their existing systems, just to enable it to pull that information in. I use the term they're Googling it. So they're searching all their information, their apps for the information back to it. But the key component here is that it isn't pixie dust. It takes a focus, it takes, in my opinion, an even stronger engineer to implement it. Yes, sir.
So we're a services company. People hire us to build software. And what I started doing as we migrated to code-assisted AI, so we're talking about that specifically, like using AI to write code and build products. We would do our budgeting and planning based on our, quote, traditional way of executing. And then we would measure, and we use some pilot projects to figure out, like, okay, where's the ROI on this? And we're on average now, going into this year, 47% on average under budget and timeline on those same projects. So, and token use is inconsequential from an ROI perspective. So for me, I'm all in. There's a no-brainer business decision around it.
So you were 50% under budget for cost, but what was the actual value that you created to
The same value. So they're hiring us
Equal value.
to build said product, and we got it done in like with 47% less budget, and probably about the same in timeline.
hard values to the
It's
client,
timeline.
measurable value?
Yeah.
You adopted a life cycle management software.
So I mean, you got to measure. You got to say, hey, we're going to use these things to build product, and again, that's what we do. We build product. And you got to say, hey, this is what our traditional way of doing it is. Now we're going to run this project using those tools, and then we're going to measure and we're going to compare. And so far, like I said, we're on average about 47%.
You sound like a very mature shop.
Yeah,
That's
but
great.
also, I'm
We
curious.
also got similar numbers, by the way, for our developers.
So let's take a little timestamp here. I knew that we were going to have this, and this is what the purpose of this is.
One more question.
Sure, 1 second, please. So I was told 7:30 is the end time. Is that correct? You guys want to keep going for a little bit longer, or are you ready to stop? 8 o'clock? All right, we'll go to 8. All right. Thank you. Yes, sir. Sorry.
So, some gentleman mentioned, business requirement where business people say, I want to use this AI. I have a flip situation. We use a lot of tools, and those tools used to be regular tools, right? Like, let me give you an example, Postman. So Postman is our, HTTP, client calls. We do testing on Postman and that. I think last week Postman came with an update, and now Postman has AI.
Yep.
Okay, I have tokens stored in my Postman. I have environment variables where I have stored tokens, which are normally 14-day tokens. I use that because I know it's my environment. I'm not going to share it with anyone. Now AI is there. If I fire a request to one of our testing servers, it will go ahead and grab that token. Who knows? I don't know that. It is not about knowing or not knowing. My devs are going to use that tool. I'll give you another story.
Before AI.
Sorry?
Grab the tokens before AI. And it's not send a request back and forth between the Postman and your local host.
No, not that. So the tool itself has AI now, right? So you don't anticipate AI to be in between your call to your own server and stuff like that, which was not part of the game. Basic thing like a terminal command where you type your stuff. AI is there in the terminal now, right? If you use Word, it has AI built into that. You can use Opus model, you can use Haiku model, you can use Sonnet, anything you want, you can use that. Where does this data go? We don't know because we can stop anything related to Anthropic, anything related to OpenClaw, anything related to OpenAI. We can keep stopping all of those places, but then where is the single governance law that I can apply to my network security, saying that from all of these sites, how many sites do I keep stopping and where is the end? That's where the main question I have.
Okay.
Well, in the legal world, obviously sharing data is a no-no, right? You're not going to use your data to train somebody else's model, right? And then we don't want to have, client confidential information out there,
Do you use test data?
Yeah, but you can, so if you open cursor, you can.
Hold on a second. Let him finish answer the question. I appreciate it.
Places you keep doing that.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Let's respect them just like you want to be respected, okay?
So in for instance in AWS, right? AWS guarantees that they're not sharing your data with Anthropic, right? That you have your own little Claude instance, whatever it is, Sonnet, Opus, whatever you're using, Mythos eventually maybe, I don't know, but no, probably not. But and they're guaranteed not to share your data, right? Anything in Bedrock is yours. You don't. It doesn't go out the door. They're not training their models, and that's big. I mean, that's huge. If you don't pay attention to that, you're gonna share your data with people that you don't want to have your data.
That comes with that enterprise license. You get a sandbox.
Yep, you got to have the sandbox.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Just a general, I mean, it sounds like, how do you systematize all this, right? So where you can wrap your business with this layer of sort of logic, business logic that protects all these interests. I think you're getting there, right? You've got skills, you got prompt chains, you got context, sort of engineering that goes into it. And you have this nice little playbook of wrappers that go around, this layer of logic that goes around your dev shop, your business in general. And you get this, and maybe you can help us model that out, right?
Yeah, we have to use these tools. Like that's it.
I think for you, it's
we have to use these tools. We have to treat them the same way we've always treated the entire software development lifecycle, VS Code, whatever. It's just another version of that thing, right?
It just adds more stuff to it. And then there's security tools, like I said, that you can get that will actually review your AI code. I mean, you probably use it, right? Sneak or Will or whatever, right?
For instance, like QA. So we're now rolling out like Claude to the QA team, and they're basically getting to the point where they're like, I know exactly what this bug is, and here's how it should be fixed. And now that's getting ticketed. It's going over to the lead developer, who's then looking at it and then saying, yeah, this looks good, go ahead. So that's just a trust but verify thing for right now, but like I know where it's going.
Yeah.
Which is like QA is gonna fix bugs.
Yeah.
Like so, like I'm literally like erasing things as I move left or right. Like right now, our front end UI UX people are writing React code. Like they're using Figma Make and Builder, and they're literally writing the code that is the front end. So my front end development is literally nothing anymore, and I'm working all the way to QA. And eventually, QA is not going to find bugs; they're going to fix bugs.
How long did it take you to get to this point? From the time you started your first AI?
I started getting aggressive about a year ago.
Okay.
And saying I'm going to do a lot of the R&D and like on my own, just trying to figure out like what it is.
You're figuring out what the framework's going to be.
I literally did the R&D projects, the POCs,
Right.
and then I said, okay, this is what we're doing, and then we're just working the whole chain. We're working the whole software development life cycle, and saying what is our protocol across the whole board.
Yes.
You got tool maturity, right? So Claude maturity.
I mean, a year ago, I couldn't do what I'm doing.
Figma Make
Yeah.
doesn't
Do
exist.
you have any financial client?
And it changes
Do you have any financial
monthly.
client?
Right,
We're
so it's
healthcare.
like the iterative
Yeah.
tool set
So,
and the business.
I have a
It's
financial
like-
client.
By the end of this year, it's going to be another world.
Yeah, so you're constantly.
Excuse me, can we keep one? You guys can talk afterwards, it'll be fine. So one of the things that the study did go into details on the slide is most of the failures in PLCs were big companies. Because I think they get lost a lot of times because of the situation. So let's bring up a topic that was on the list, buy versus build. Dave, why don't you start that one and then we'll go down.
All right. Yeah, buy versus build. There's big software products, that I would buy, that I do buy. Workday, for HR. ServiceNow, any type of large adherent financials, anything that's massive, I would buy. Now, all these things now, ServiceNow especially, has a lot of AI in it now. They call it AI, right? It has its own little AI, large language model that it uses, and you can do anything with ServiceNow. You can use it as an MPC server, and you can open a ticket, if you want to. Building is a different story. I think, when you're going to think about building, you got to think about specifics. Is it something that I should do? Do I need to do it? And if I had 300 developers, maybe I'd think differently about it, but I don't, I'd probably build more. But building is a complex thing. It's a software lifecycle development project, right? Everything is software. We're working on software, You wouldn't give your QA guy, he wouldn't be a BA. But he's being a BA if he's writing code to a degree, right? He's interpreting what it should do, how to fix it, and that kind of thing. When you build the code, you have to have an understanding of what you're going to build to begin with, right? I think a lot of POCs fail, not just because of bad use cases, but because of poor planning. Do I have an environment that I can use? Do I have support for the environment? Do I have the developers that are anxious or wanting to actually use AI to do the development? And, from what I've heard, a lot of people have some of these very issues. I feel bad for you having to justify what people are doing with AI, but it's tough. And really, it's not what they do with it, it's what they create from it, right? It is a very creative thing. Prompt engineering is an art in a way. You have to know how to manipulate it to get what you want. You have to massage it to get it to move to the next iteration. I've bought and I've built, and I can tell you the building part is tough, but I've enjoyed it more just because it's kind of cool and it gives you more control, right? If you really have something that you want to have total control over, you build it. If it's very specific to your industry and you want to have some type of competitive edge or advantage, you got to build it. You can buy a product that does half of what you want it to do and maybe extend it. But if you want to have that competitive advantage and be strategic down the road, you got to build at
Tim?
that point.
Vibe versus build.
Or if you something else you want to talk
No,
about.
I'm good with that. So my
Oh, I'm sorry. Where?
I was gonna, sorry, you mentioned some of the big players like ServiceNow and Workday. What about maybe a layer below that, like smart sheets? We kind of bastardized smart sheets, and I'm itching to maybe
Smart Sheets is
something there.
Are you okay, Dolly? For sure. I think you can. I think you could roll AI into Smart Sheets pretty easily and be successful.
I mean, not roll AI into smart sheets, but literally replace smart sheets with some type of.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, what we're seeing is
Probably
like,
could, yeah.
like, we have this app and somebody wants to build this and we're like, oh man, this needs like a lightweight CMS or something that's like a little more complicated. A year ago, it would be like, let's find a framework or maybe license something or whatever. Like now, I'm like, build it.
So there's a term going around, right? It says
gonna build it.
apocalypse, right?
Yeah.
Which means that all the SaaS products are going to die eventually.
Yes.
Yeah. Like HubSpot,
Yes.
right?
The one
So
kind
that's a good
The thing about building a Smart Sheet replacement, the thing about doing that, you have to think about Smart Sheet's going to come out with some advancements. They're going to update constantly. They're going to patch security holes. They're going to do all this stuff. I mean, you're going to get some stuff from buying Smart Sheet, right? Using Smart Sheet. You have to think about maintenance down the road. I mean, you're going to have to constantly monitor it and update it and enhance it. It's a cost of ownership. I mean, it's a software development project at that point. It's very doable, and I could see a need to do it. Honestly, I mean, I think it's probably a good replacement. Unless you want to buy something for like a couple $1 million.
I would say we're building more than buying nowadays than we would a year ago.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like we're now the option to say like, hey, let's just build it is there where it wasn't a year ago.
I think that has a lot to do with where you are too, right? I mean, you are in that situation where you can say, let me build it, right? I mean, if I had 300 developers,
I wouldn't have 300 developers.
Oh no, we have real now.
I need to be like
a lot of tokens.
Well, that's the reason you want to kind of move over to that in a way. Save money, efficiency, right? Yeah, I mean, it's not to get rid of people, it's to help people be better.
Well, he
maybe
wants to go from velocity of 300 to 600 with the same people.
Right?
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah, for sure.
Dave.
Double the productivity.
All right, so my understanding of build versus vibe. So today, you can build with a skill, you can build with a workflow and a spec, and it'll get you about 80 to 90% there. And depending on your maturity level as an engineer, you'll just jump into vibing and you'll just have it nudge a little here, a little there, update Jira, do things that you would normally do as an engineer, makes you feel like a human in that loop. And then you can even tell it, all right, go commit the PR and I'm done. Usually that's my vibe experience. What I tell my engineers to do is I want you to get to the point where you're just doing code reviewing and vibing with the AI at the end. So now all you do is you get a list of PRs in the morning, you're reviewing it. If you get one, you tell the AI to vibe, you're vibing with the AI to fix something and then update it again. And that's where you're gonna see huge ROI, because now you're taking 8-point user stories down to 1 point. You'll see like 2 weeks turn into 1 day. And that's where you're gonna start to see that ROI go up towards management. They're going to see that value.
It's the commodity work, right?
Yeah.
You're automating. You're automating commodity work at the legal firms, right? That's all that commodity work.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so build versus buy, like we've come into a lot of that too, where we're primarily homegrown and build a bunch of our stuff. And what you find is like, can you support it or not? You keep talking about 300 developers, right?
Yeah.
And you're not joking, because we build our own things, and me being a little bit downstream of some of the homebrew stuff that we're doing, it's like, if we would have just gone through ServiceNow, or I'm sorry, we have somebody like Salesforce or somebody that does POS systems, it would be able to scale way better and way faster than us having to deal with the absolute chaos that is, the traditional IT department. Because it seems like, hey, we're going to function to get the MVP out. And it's like, wait a minute, well, we need that because everybody's going to ask us about it. And they go, oh, we didn't think about how to do that yet. It's like we could have bought a whole tool, and then real quick. And then it's like, when you're buying something as opposed to building it, ServiceNow, Workday, something like that, it's almost like unionized work in the sense that there's already like an industry of technology professionals that know that language, that know that product, as opposed to come here and learn how we did it wrong.
Yes, sir. I'll let him behind you first, and then we'll.
One thing I wanted to bring is the innovator's dilemma. You're probably familiar with that, right? Which is, I could build it now, but if I waited 6 months, the models might be so good that I could do it in 10 seconds. We just had, I think Mythos maybe got too much press on it. No, we don't know, like, whatever. But I think when the Chinese models came in almost exactly a year ago, America said, hey, we're going to go big because that's what we know best, right? So they said, we've got the compute. They don't. We know that Grok's about to release 6 trillion and those splats coming. I think there's a step function and capabilities. We've already seen kind of this pretty straight growth going back from Opus 3.5 all the way to 4.6, pretty impressive. But now if we get a step function, I guess I would ask, as you say, you can build yourself or build versus buy. I think for a lot of people, the ROI is, am I going to get punished if I just don't even start this project for 6 months? Right? And that's what I keep hearing, right? And the reality that I see is you're probably not wrong. Like if you don't, like, I feel like you have to be in the game, and if you're not in the game, you won't be ready in 6 months. And you can say, I'll wait forever. But there's also this, if you have a 95% failure rate, maybe the models were, part of it was the models were good enough.
I think every environment, maturity-wise, you have to take the evaluation with, right? Very mature organization here. Some others may be struggling. We haven't even gotten into data, right? How important data structure is to the success. And there are so many organizations that aren't prepared for that. So I think you have to take an individual approach. But my number one thing, I know Tim's got a comment, is educate your executives. Don't let them read the hype. Don't let them believe the hype. Many years ago, anybody remember object-oriented technology? Oh, it was going to change the world. We're not going to have to write another piece of code because we're going to borrow that library over there. It didn't happen. So, not saying that AI won't happen. It will, but you need to educate them so they don't think it's pixie dust. I'll get it done in 3 days. All right, go ahead.
I just have a comment about something to look out for is you may start to see engineers using AI a lot, and if they hit their allotted amount, they'll be like, hey, I'm going to go home for the rest of the day. I'm done at 12 and I don't have anything else.
Fire them. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so you have to figure out that medium for them to stay at the office working in that job. And sometimes, like in the cloud subscription, you have that timer. So you get a good 4 hours, and then they have to do something else, like go touch grass or something. And then you get another 2 hours, and then it's time to go home. So that's something to keep in mind, because if you don't give your engineers enough of the tokens to use during the day, they may just sit around the rest of the day.
Well, it's kind of interesting too, because like you can use that to basically incentivize them to say like, hey, we're hoping to give you back 25% of your week or something. Yeah. And for that 25%, I want you to work on your like a bespoke project, like an R&D project or something. Like which we've retained developers. We want to retain developers who are super excited about technology. And one of the things that we struggle with is like finding any time for them to do something experimental or whatever.
It goes away from the feature factory.
You got a lot invested in them too.
Yeah, feature factories are the death of engineers. So you don't want them to keep working feature.
That's back to the business case for legal firms. It's capacity and value creation. Exactly in that way.
Yeah. All right, we got to check. 15 minutes left. So for just one more quick round, if you guys can tell
Sure.
the most positive thing, or you have a comment to make, or if not, what's the most positive thing you've seen so far? Not generic, but specific.
Yeah,
But if you have another comment, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I used the AI Ops story, which we couldn't talk about, but we also had another one that we just worked with a real estate technology company. So think about, they aggregate, right? So they have a whole bunch of scripts that crawl sites, get property listings, bring them back, aggregate. Well, they don't have any control over the sites they crawl. Every time there's a change, script breaks. They were spending about 8 hours a week manually fixing these scripts. This was like the perfect marriage because these aren't very complex scripts either. We were able to do that with a simple model, and now that goes from 8 hours to 1 hour. And it's another instance where those developers now are actually doing more on the feature side, because that's where I see the biggest impact is get people away from the firefighting and get them back to adding value, adding features, and actually building products instead of just constantly fixing bugs.
Okay.
To me, that's been the most.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about AI just kind of bringing everything together. I mean, in the last year, it's just done unbelievable things. And now, everybody that uses an Office suite can use AI everywhere. It consolidates everything. It's also one of my biggest fears is that it consolidates everything. So it's kind of good and bad. It's all about who's holding that consolidation, right? I mean, in your case, it's like who's going to control the software that can do all these things. But I think it's great, and I think that it's not going away, that's for sure. So adopt or die is pretty much the way I see it.
Exactly. Tim?
I think this conversation that we're having will be totally different 6 months from now, and we'll have to revamp all our IOI data sheets on how we're going to make our engineers productive or even keep them. That's good and bad, but I feel like that's where we're going to end up. Probably in 6 months to a year, you're going to have a whole nother rotation of figuring out how to do things again.
Yep.
Anybody got anything else they want? Yes, sir.
So it's all about fail fast, right? We get that. So but whether it's custom or COTS, I wanted to ask the question: if we're about to sign a deal on like a 2-year or a 3-year with a ServiceNow or a whatever, is it safe? Is SaaS dead, or is it safe to? Because they got the governance layers and the the compartmentalized access layers and everything else into this, and all the logic layers that are built into these large.
Because SaaS companies go out of business, the stock market's going to be.
It's
great.
It's not
like,
What's
like
already
the whole world is going to be.
It's going to turn upside down. It's already happening. But do we go ahead and commit to those 2 or 3 years? We got to fail fast either way. But do we commit on this side, and then we also commit to custom over here?
If you're going to commit to a long term, I'd say negotiate
2 years.
a great deal for
Yeah.
2
Yeah.
years. Keep it short.
Time horizon short.
Yeah, short.
And then how much are you using that ecosystem? Like, is the cost to build it going to cost you more than those 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I look at that and like,
But they're
If you
not.
look, if you look at like ERP,
right,
who's
who's going
data? ERP is it, right? So if you're going to invest, it's ERP. It's the authoritative home of everything.
They're not going away though. You're right. If they went away, it'd be over.
Yes, sir.
The pricing is going to get compressed.
And they're using AI also to be more efficient. So as they start,
I think we're losing the room.
using more AI.
I would just point out that all of those companies that you have relationships with, now that they have software that can make software, they'll all go horizontal. So it'll be the smaller players, the linears, the smaller CRMs. But every CRM and ERP, they're going to try to beat everything down. So that's probably what's going to happen. So people you making that investment in are going to try to do it all.
Did you have a comment?
No, same.
All right.
Same line.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good evening. Hey.
Sorry. You had the most active crowd this much out of everybody that we had so far. So
The years of working with engineers, they all got an opinion. But they don't like yours.
but yeah, I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us, by the way.
It was awesome. Anytime.